Afternoon. Thanks for coming. First, let me introduce the folks that are with us today. I'd like to introduce from Sodexo, our concessionaire, Paul Lakey, the district manager, Mark Watkins, one of the vice presidents of operations for the company, and Laura Bielko, a face that you've seen very often around here, who handles us locally. Also with us is Chief Roberts of the University Police, not here, but here in spirit. Chief Preston of the Morgantown Police, former Chief Scott, now working for you, Bob, the former Morgantown Police Chief, and Chief Merrill of the State Police. And I'd like to thank all of our public safety officials, as well as the Sodexo folks over the last couple of months. They've really spent a lot of time with us as we've worked through all the logistical details and operational details, security details. CSC, our security organization, deserves thanks as well for the time they've spent to make sure that we can get this all right. As many of you remember, back in June, the Board of Governors voted to allow beer sales at West Virginia University athletic venues. And it's a real privilege for our department to be able to offer our Mountaineer fans the choice to purchase beer. It's also a big responsibility, and as I had mentioned, we have spent considerable time over the last 6 or 7 months with our public safety folks with Sodexo to make sure that we consider every option, every unintended consequences, looking at all the different issues that we have faced. And I'm happy to report that I think we really have a very solid plan that will work very well. I am obligated as the athletic director to come back to our Board of Governors in the spring of next year and prepare a report. And we are in the process of working with students from our industrial engineering school as well as from the sports management group to develop a set of metrics so that we can report hard data to the Board of Governors in terms of how the beer sales has worked. So our industrial engineering students and our sport management students will be at all of our games. They'll be looking at all sorts of different issues surrounding traffic and restrooms and concession sales and how this all works. We'll be looking at that data after every home game, seeing where we can make improvements during the course of the games, and then once the season is finished, we'll collate that data, collect that data, and then make a report to our Board of Governors. A couple of informational points before I let the Sodexo folks have a stab at the microphone. We will be working with 3 different breweries: Anheuser-Busch, Miller Coors, and a local brewery, the Morgantown Brewing Company. There will be product from all 3 of those breweries in the football stadium this fall. It's important to mention that not only are those 3 breweries vendors for us through our concessionaire, but also they are sponsoring West Virginia University athletics and allowing us to fulfill our mission, which is to put the best student athletes we can on the field and be very competitive. So we thank them for their sponsorship. Many of you are interested in price points. While I won't go into any sub-brands that 3 breweries will have, we'll try to have some representatives from all 3 of the breweries here next week. But I can tell you that beer price points will be $7, $8, and $9 for this upcoming season. And with that, I thought it would be appropriate to turn it over to Paul Lakey from Sodexo, and he can share more details with you. Thank you, Paul.
Okay, thanks, Oliver. Well, first of all, it's great to be here at Mountaineer Field. Sodexo's been operating here for nearly 15 years, doing all the food service, including all the concessions, catering, activities for special events. So we know the facility, we know the environment. We're happy to continue our partnership with West Virginia University. There's some tremendous challenges with adding the sale of beer in here. We're very confident with the plan that we have devised with the university, that we're covering all angles of it. We have intensive training ongoing as we speak. Laura, myself, and Mark Watkins, our Director of Ops, will actually attend a two-hour training session this afternoon. We're training over 500 individuals for responsible serving of alcoholic beverages. It's called Team Coalition, and that's a training in effective alcohol management where we do some role playing, we do the regulations of who we're going to check IDs for, which is essentially everyone. that comes up to wanting to purchase a beer, we will check the IDs. If you don't have the proper ID, you won't be served. The other things that Laura and me have talked about is with individuals coming in here, if they potentially had too much to consume, we will refuse service right from the start of it. Training, in addition to the training and making our people responsible and adhering to strict guidelines, our overall goal is to enhance the fan experience here. This is an opportunity with the new policies in place that we can responsibly serve the beer, let people enjoy the game, and then also protect the individuals that don't consume. And in our layout of the facility, we are not going to serve any beer in the area of the student section. There's not going to be any permanent concessions or portable locations in that area. That way the students can continue to come to the game and enjoy it as they always have. We're not doing any vending in the stands. We're being responsible. The people will have to come up to our counter, and as I said, they will have to provide the proper IDs, and we will do the proper checkpoints. We have received the license here at the stadium. I know there's been a lot of media requests, but we have received the license for the stadium, and we are fastly putting in our plan equipment. The last several months, Laura and myself and team members have put together the plan to effectively lay out the locations. As Oliver had stated, we're dealing with all the major domestic beer companies. We have the Morgantown Brewing Company with the craft beer, and then we'll have some imports in certain locations also. But again, the biggest issue is the training, the controlling of the alcohol, and making sure the fan experience stays as is. I'll leave it up to any questions. Probably answer it first from my end, and then Oliver take it from the university.
Can we start with a simple one? Can you spell your last name and give us your title, please?
Okay, I can hand out cards too, but
Okay, that's fine.
Lakey, L-A-K-Y.
L-A-K-Y.
Yep. And it's Sodexo, S-O-D-E-X-O. But
What's your title?
I'm the district manager.
District manager, thank you. I was curious about the involvement of a local brewery. I guess that must have been important to somebody. Can you talk about why you decided to use a local provider as well?
Well, we made a decision, I think, early on in this process to engage both the big national breweries, if you will, and you can argue whether any one is in the hands of the U.S. anymore, given all the takeovers that have taken place. But as part of that, we wanted a brewery to be able to offer its product and a brewery that's brewing beer in the state of West Virginia. I want to say, Laura, you took the lead on contacting a handful of breweries in the state. There's really not that many, and we did some research and talked to a bunch of folks, and these relationships technically are really between Sodexo and the various breweries, but we think it's great to have Morgantown Brewing Company present at all the games. They're excited about it. I know you've placed an order already with them, which is probably the biggest order they've seen in the short existence of the organization, and we plan on having some of their folks here next week to talk about that a little bit. But I think it was important because it's an example of how we work well with the community and work well with local merchants and try to improve as best we can the situation for local companies here in Morgantown.
What is a $7 beer, an $8 beer, and a $9 beer?
You'll find out next week.
Will it vary with the brand? I mean, whether
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Imports are priced a little higher, and then your domestic plastic could be at the 7, and 8 might be a 20-ounce draft.
Is the plan still to serve it in bottles, or are we doing cups as well?
The vast majority of beer will be served in plastic bottles, much like water bottles or soda bottles have been used at the stadium. With the craft brews, they don't have a bottling facility, so that will be served in 16-ounce cups.
Sure, and then is there any sort of recycling program in place for these bottles? The university's big on that.
Yes, I'll let y'all touch on that, but we've talked for a while about recycling. There's an effort that the university has, Mountaineer Recycling, that's been very, very, I think, successful out in the tailgate areas and in the stadium, and with the amount of
of units that we believe will be sold, we think it's fairly important to do that. But I know I think, Laura, you may have more information than even Paul on some of the details there.
Anheuser-Busch is actually donating all the recycling bags that will be available here at the stadium, and more containers and signage as well. So we're working hand in hand with them on the recycling matter.
But speaking of recycling, what is being done for the bathrooms around the stadium?
We will be bringing in a number of mobile restroom facilities, and if you walk around Mountaineer Field, you'll see some concrete pads that have been put in place just literally within the last couple of weeks as locations for those facilities. They'll be, I think, primarily for females, given the wait times and all that. And so we're trying to max out, if you will, the restroom capacity that we have, both within the stadium footprint as well as outside in the tailgate areas. And we've spent a lot of time. Our staff has spent a lot of time looking at that, because that is important, no question about it. It's a comfort issue, and so we think we've addressed that as best we can.
You mentioned units sold. What's our guess on how many beers we're going to sell on the football Saturday?
I would defer to the Sodexo folks. You all run the stadium at Rentschler Field, for example, up at UConn, and you have pro stadiums across the country. I'm not sure I have a good feel for what sort of units will ultimately be sold.
In answer to that question for you, what we will do to make sure that the controls are there, we're going to serve beer till 7.5 minutes playing time in the third quarter. So we're going to limit ourselves. Our goal is not to maximize the sales. Our goal is to control the sales effectively and make sure the experience stays there. So as far as numbers, Roy don't have anything to share at this point, but it's not going to be to maximize, it's to control. And 7.5 minutes playing time in the third quarter is the key issue. One thing I failed to mention when I was up here a few minutes ago, we will have a designated driver program, encouraging people to make sure they're responsible as part of our effort here. And that's something we're focused on very strong. I believe we've got a location on each quarter of the stadium to make it available, not just to be doing it, to make sure it's very visible and people can take advantage of that.
Is it accurate to say that you all are offering a free soda, a coupon for a free soda for those folks who do sign up at any of the DD stations?
Oliver, you mentioned the addition of portable johns or whatever outside the stadium, which brings up the logical question about the pass outs. What's the deal with that?
Well, the pass-out policy doesn't exist anymore. So we changed that policy, I think, as everybody here knows. Folks can still obviously leave the game at any point if they need to leave or whatever. That's fine. You just simply can't come back in. Now, there is one caveat, which is that all of our security officials do have the discretion if somebody needs to run out to get medicine or baby formula or whatever. Every one of our staffers has the discretion, as do our public safety officials, to let somebody back in if it really is an emergency. But by and large, the mass exiting will not take place. Well, I hope it doesn't take place, because those folks won't be able to come back in. That's been communicated, I think, relatively effectively, and I think people understand that. And quite honestly, we've joined the vast majority of college and pro stadiums around the country in terms of the new policy.
And you're smoking